Despite unemployment near a 50-year low, there are more troubling signs for the economy, which reportedly is linked with recent troubling signs from the president. And we'll get into that in just a second. But first, just to the indicators. For the first time in nearly a decade, America's manufacturing sector shrank. Its first sign of contraction from this index since 2009. Plus, for the second time in a week, there has been what's called a yield curve inversion. It's a rare phenomenon on Wall Street, but when it hits, market watchers pay attention because it's been a predictor of every U.S. recession in the modern era. And then comes news of a major adjustment to the bedrock of the nation's economy, the strong jobs numbers. The Labor Department is now saying that between April of 2018 and March of this year, there were 500,000 fewer jobs created than they actually originally thought. It's all adding to the worries of a slowdown, and it comes just as we're getting word of an even more worrisome speed up. The federal deficit ballooning much faster than previously expected. So says the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. You can see this orange line there on your screen, that the deficit now on track to hit $1 trillion in fiscal year 2020, which starts in September. That is several years earlier than the CBO first projected. So Maya MacGuineas is president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Maya, nice to have you on.
Thank you.
Going back to that orange line, why is the deficit growing faster than initially thought?
Well, it's pretty much all self-imposed. Actually, in many ways, the economy is helping us because interest rates are stunningly low, and so we have savings there. But much more than compensating for that is the fact that we have passed unpaid for tax cuts, unpaid for spending increases, and more unpaid for spending increases. And so Congress is fast passing deficit finance legislation so quickly. I believe the president has signed in over $4 trillion of debt increases into law. And no
Is that
surprise,
what you mean by self-imposed?
Yeah, so no surprise. This is coming from legislation that Congress is passing and the president is signing. And so this in many ways is reflective not of a weak fiscal situation that comes from the economy, but it comes from our politicians. And that's the problem.
So what does this mean for families? How does it impact them on an everyday level?
The big challenge, of course, is that families are struggling in so many different ways in terms of wage growth, jobs, economic security, uncertainty that's there. And there's this huge looming national debt that nobody really sees as affecting them directly. But in many ways, it's the underpinnings of the overall economy. So with a debt that's too high, it means that economic growth could slow, wages could slow, there could be fewer jobs. And it certainly means, this is relevant for right now, that if and when you do go into a recession, not only could that high debt in some ways bring about slower economic growth, it makes it harder to fight. Because last time we had a recession, the debt relative to the economy was half the level that it is today. And so if and when we need to do large amounts of fiscal stimulus, we've really kind of emptied that toolbox ahead of time, and it leaves us less prepared to fight a recession.
So a worse situation than for us going into it, if in fact it happens. What about back to those jobs numbers? Because there are other signs of a contracting manufacturing index. The jobs numbers revised down by 500,000, but I know the job market is tight. There are more jobs than people to fill them. So what do you make of that?
So there are mixed signals right now all around the economy. I would add some additional ones on the negative side that we also know, which is the level of uncertainty. Our policy making is like, gives you whiplash day by day, if not hour by hour. And that kind of uncertainty is never good for markets. It's never good for the underlying economy. It's never good for consumers. So that level of uncertainty is huge. On the longer term, we have these big challenges that actually mean growth will be much slower going forward, from huge shifts in demographics to the fact that we have this big debt load that we haven't addressed. And we have entitlement programs that are unprepared to deal with these things. So we have immediate questions. And I would say, given how long the expansion has been, near record levels, it's another warning that it's probably time where the business cycle is going to start to tip. But we also have an ongoing struggle to help get economic growth going in a longer term. And coming back full circle to those debt numbers, having a larger debt means fighting any and all of these short and long-term problems much more difficult.
I hear you loud and clear, Maya MacGuineas. I'm hoping others do as well. When it comes to the economy, the stakes are high.